All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to, my first workshop at Hack the North. We're just going to wait roughly 2 to 3 more minutes, and then we'll get started. All right. Hi, everyone. We're still just going to wait another minute or two, and then we'll get started. Just waiting for people to come in. Thanks. All right. Let's start. I'll start sharing my screen. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unspoken Steps to Accelerate Your Technical Career. Now, this is not a typical career advice workshop. I know there was probably a bunch in the past that you guys have probably attended, whether that be other hackathons or in the past at Hack the North. But I really want to show you guys what I've learned over the past few years that has really accelerated my technical career. And it's not a lot of things that people know about. One thing I would like you guys to do is to check the Discord and follow along with the Hacker Pack, because there's a lot of good links that you guys can follow along and check out along the way. But I think everything's good. So let's get started. Well, I'm Brandon. I go to Waterloo. I'm a 2B mechatronics engineering student. And so I just finished second year. I'm also currently in the Bay right now as a software engineering intern at Tesla. And those are my socials. Feel free to add me on Instagram or LinkedIn if you just want advice or just to connect as well. And over the past few years, I've gained a lot of knowledge with interview prep as well as doing interviews as well. And I think I would just like to expose and share that knowledge with you guys as well. My previous co-ops have been at RBC, as well as Prodigy Education, and yeah, currently at Tesla as well. I'm working on the bot. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's a pretty cool thing that I got the opportunity to work alongside with a lot of great engineers. And yeah, if you guys want to do something like that or work on a big project at a big company, this workshop is for you. So yeah, let's get started with the agenda. So here we're going to go through 5 things. The first thing is housekeeping, how to get your LinkedIn, your digital portfolio out there, and make sure you clean that up nicely for those interviews. And when recruiters go to check your profile, it looks just as good as you look in person as well, right? Because everything now is online, and that's the most important thing, the first step to getting an interview. And then I'll talk about getting the interview, preparing for the interview. So what can you do that not a lot of people do to sort of accelerate yourself and put yourself in front of others that are also interviewing for the same position? And then how to ace that interview. And then 5th is just advice, questions, anything you guys would like to talk about or for me to answer as well. All right, let's get started. And there's also a Slido. If you guys have any questions throughout this workshop, feel free to ask. And yeah, so housekeeping. So housekeeping is sort of cleaning up your LinkedIn profile, your personal portfolio, your resume, and deciding on what field you want to go into, whether that means product management, software, design, or maybe even a non-technical role. So I'll just briefly go over these kind of things, starting with your LinkedIn profile. And here are some screenshots of mine. So in the top left, we have a very outdated profile picture. We have, my bio. So what position I'm at currently, where I study, and what I'm planning to do next, right? So intern at Tesla, mechatronics at Waterloo, and I'm seeking summer 2022 internships for next year. And then it's always good to make certain posts on LinkedIn as well, and to get yourself out there, because I know my manager, for example, he's on LinkedIn a lot, looking at what students post and looking to hire the next intern. So some things that I posted was here on the bottom left. About a year ago, I did this 4-course specialization on self-driving cars. And I just talked about it, showed my certification, and then I said hashtag Tesla, right? And then 1 year later, I'm at Tesla. I got the job, and ever since then, it's been great. And I think that certification and just exposure to the LinkedIn network really helped me get that position as well. And with your experience, you want to have certain bullet points, same as your resume, but you can go more in depth on LinkedIn, I would say, because you have more space, and anything more technical there can go there, right? So there's my experience at Prodigy, at Autonomous, and at Tesla as well. And let me know if I'm going too fast for you guys or too slow, but yeah. And next is your personal portfolio. So mine is a website, which I can show you guys. And this, you don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but it's always good to have something that you made apart from a project that you can actually show and send to recruiters or managers, right? So for example, this is my website. It's pretty nice. It just highlights me in the middle with a bunch of friends, introducing myself, some stats as well, kind of outdated, a little bio about myself, right? Just to show some personality and that I'm not just there to code. I'm there to, have a great experience and contribute to the team and a lot of the projects. Here we have my skills, right? And experience as well. I don't have Tesla there yet, but here are some pictures of me and my coworkers or friends. And on the right side, we have, the technical stuff about what I did at each company and the role that I had, right? And then here, you don't have to add grades. Grades are not the most important thing, especially in a technical role. And I added the grades that I did the best in. So, it's not the most recent or anything like that, but it's just something that I can show off that I did well on a few courses and can show that. Projects are also very important. So having projects, and especially after you have a summary of them, you want to say what you did as well, specifically, because recruiters, when you talk about a project, they're specifically going to ask you, what exactly did you do to contribute to this project, right? So you always want to have that. And at the bottom, just contact information and stuff like that, right? So that's just a little personal portfolio, and it's great to learn HTML, JavaScript, and CSS for this. All right, and we're just gonna go full screen, but I might switch back to other slides later on. But yeah, so now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the GitHub repositories of job search. So starting with the job search, it can be tough to find jobs online, whether that's you want to work at a startup or you want to work at a big company, and you need to find out when are jobs going to be posted or how can I easily access them, right? So for example, there's a GitHub repository called Summer 2022 Tech Internships by someone. And you can use this repository to share and keep track of software, tech, CS, PM, quant, and internship roles for summer 22. I'll actually show you that live. So right here, right? So we have this, and you can see the list. And you can also contribute to that if you find something interesting and you'd like to share. But the list here just goes in depth about a lot of different companies and about their location and notes as well. So you can see that this one is closed, and you can see that this internship's only for individuals that live in the United States, but it has a lot of good companies, right, that you can just go to and go and apply. It is tedious, but hey, sometimes you need quality and you need quantity to land a good position for your next internship or next full-time role, right? So Lyft, we got Twitch, we got a bunch of them, and I found out about this recently. Please let me know if you guys know about this or not, but I think this is a great resource for anyone looking to find a job in the coming months, right? Thanks to all the contributors down there. And okay, and you say, all right, I'm not doing an internship right now, but I graduate next year. I'm looking for a full-time role. Well, that's perfect too. They have new grad applications as well, right? So there's another repository here, and it has links to all of the new grad roles. So if I click on Amazon, for example, it should take me there, right? Software development engineer 2022, and you can apply now, right? So I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, let me know in the chat if this is new to you or you already know about it as well. All right, and then let's see here. Yeah, so that's pretty much a repository to find a lot of jobs that maybe are uncommon, or you can't sort of think of these companies like Datadog, like Benchling, Citadel maybe. So this is great exposure to just go through it, and you could also see the positions and what they're looking for and sort of get a sense at what a lot of companies are looking for skills, and as well as technologies too, right? If a lot of companies say React, have like React as a certain software that is needed, well, you can spend the next few months learning React and apply to all these jobs later on. The next is exploratory learning. So GitHub can be used for exploratory learning in many ways, and I don't think people have sort of seen these repositories either. And yeah, I would just like to share that with you. But I'm just gonna grab a drink of water and just pause for a bit if you guys have any questions. All right, so exploratory learning. I'll actually show you guys the actual one here, right? So when I did my self-driving car specialization, it was great to have that certification to say, hey, you did it and you passed. But if you don't want to pay for certain fees on Coursera because they can be expensive, right? You can also just search up certain courses on GitHub that are on Coursera. For example, I found the self-driving car one on GitHub, and let's go to motion planning. Let's go to week 2. Let's go to lanelets. Those are pretty efficient and good things to know for autonomous driving. So here has all the notes and things like that. So if you just want to sort of learn new things and you don't care about the certification, I think GitHub is a great way to sort of search for, courses that you might not lack the knowledge in or you want to learn as well. So this is just for one that I completed, but it has a bunch of others. And for example, here, and you might be asking, where do you find these kind of GitHub repositories? Honestly, I search stuff up. I just find them. I talk to friends as well. I have a lot of connections that sort of share these kinds of things. So it's great. And I'm sharing that with you guys as well. So here you can sort of see all the different courses. We have Duke, Java programming if you want to learn. It has different universities, U of T as well. The fundamentals about programming has the whole syllabus, week 2, 3. So this is great knowledge that you can just use for free. And I think that's really important as well. All right. Yeah, so we went through this. And yeah, this as well. Now you want GitHub repositories for coding interviews, right? So you found the job that you want from the other repositories, and now you want to find, what can I do to be prepared for the interview? So looking for coding interview prep on GitHub repositories can be found pretty easily. For example, I found this one, and it says, this repo is intended for any individual wanting to improve their problem-solving skills for software engineering interviews. And it goes through a lot of the key concepts, such as maps, linked lists, queues, heaps, stacks, trees, and graphs, right? So these are all very key in software engineering. And this guy is just kind of sharing that for free, which is great. I don't have a picture of that, but there's a link in the hacker pack as well for all of these things. So don't worry if you're just cruising along and listening for now. But also, there is this GitHub repository and many others as well. And if you guys aren't familiar with LeetCode, it's kind of like an online coding interview prep that has a lot of coding questions. And a lot of the time, companies ask these before interviews to sort of filter through the candidates through an online assessment, right? And LeetCode is a way that just asks a question and you have 30 minutes to solve it in the best way possible. So LeetCode also has a premium subscription, which is kind of expensive, and it has sort of company-based questions that they ask. But if you don't want to pay for that, you want something, kind of outdated, it's only 13 months old, but a lot of the companies sort of use the same questions. So if you go through here, it has a bunch of different companies with the questions that they asked through all time, 6 months ago, 1 year, 2 years. And most of the time it's somewhat accurate. I would say study these if you have a interview at one of these companies, because it only just helps, right? Let's go to Amazon 6 months, and then you can kind of see it has the LRU cache, it has merge case sorted list, and you can search these on LeetCode, which has the link right here, and click on it and practice that, right? So that's how you sort of get ready for coding interviews. And that's how you kind of accelerate your career apart from everyone else that just studies the regular data structures. But if you want to take it a step further, you can always do things like this as well, which I thought was very productive, and it helped me a lot in my interviews. Okay. Now, if you guys have any questions about that, the next section is ATS scanners, but I'll give you guys a second just to catch up. And I'll be back in 30 seconds. Sorry. All right. So let's start with ATS scanners. And if you don't know what these are, essentially it is automated tooling system scanner that sort of scans through resumes at usually big companies to sort of weed out, maybe weak candidates and to only get the best of the best candidates. And this is how to beat the scanners. So a lot of the time when, you submit your resume and you don't get an interview or even a coding challenge, a lot of the time it's due to these ATS scanners that automatically parses your resume, gets out keywords, and says, okay, is this candidate strong or not, right? But I will tell you guys how to beat these scanners. And I know for certain companies as well, what happens is there's certain keywords for certain job postings that they look for, and they rate, and certain keywords they add a weight to it, right? So if you have more of these keywords in your resume, you'll be weighted higher than other candidates. And let's say the top 20 gets a coding interview, the rest don't. So a lot of the time you do have to include sort of keywords that you find in job descriptions and things like that. And it only increases your chances. For example, this is one resume scanner called Resume Worded that is like a free online scanner that scans your resume and sort of tells you what is good, what isn't. And you can take this with a grain of salt by it's also a computer reviewing it, but it is pretty good, I would say. For example, I went on this website, Resume Worded. I have my resume here. So just the usual stuff at the top. Then we have the education, the skills, the experience, and my projects got cut off, but they're at the bottom, right? So this is my resume. And I also use this to get interviews at Tesla, at Google, at Bolt, and a wide variety of other companies as well. So I put this into the resume scanner and I got a 78, right? So it sort of tells you your brevity, your impact, style, and skills. 78, it's good. How can I increase it to get 100 or nearby there, right? So it also tells you what you did good on and what you didn't. And one thing was repetition. Avoid repeating action verbs. So apparently I used, will, and create 3 times each, which isn't the best if you have a lot of repetition and a lot of the time you want to use a lot of different action verbs as well. But at least I had no repeated phrases, which is good. It also tells you what you can use as alternatives to your mistakes or things that the resume scanner called out, right? So instead of used, I could say developed or directed or authored, but make sure it makes sense, right? Because a lot of the time, people will add unnecessary action verbs to their resume, and it might not make as much sense. Like I remember getting my resume critiqued by a Google employee, and I said utilized instead of used. But she told me that the difference there was that utilized is using something that isn't supposed to be used in that way, whereas used is just used. Like when you use a pencil to write a note, that's used. If you use a pencil to measure the length of your eraser, that's utilized, because a pencil isn't really meant for measuring, it's meant for writing. So that's just one little example that I had. But yeah, and there's also other ones. Resume scanners like JobScan is pretty good as well as Cultivated Culture that can scan your resume and sort of parse it. And it's only better to get your resume scanned more times, and it only helps it, in my opinion. And this is all in the Hacker Pack as well, so feel free to check that. And we'll take a quick break as well before we get into the 14 most common patterns in interviews. So we'll go in that in just a second, but if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to ask. Okay. Well, the 14 most common patterns in interviews. So a lot of the time, when you get coding assessments or you have to code in front of a recruiter or your manager, they'll ask a certain coding question, and a lot of the time it will have a certain pattern to it, right? There's many different types of patterns, but once you sort of get used to them and memorize them, they become a lot easier to solve. I remember when I was first coding, I looked at the solution all the time. And that was because I didn't know what kind of patterns that or algorithms that I could use to solve these problems. So instead of spending like an hour or two on the problem trying to figure it out, which I know is what a lot of people say you should do, I just went to the solution after 10 minutes and sort of read the answer and understood it and how I could use it next time on different patterns or different questions. Sorry. But let's start with, I'm only also going to go through 5 just to get a feel of, different sort of patterns, but I have the whole 14 patterns in the Hacker Pack as well. So feel free to check that out. Right. Okay. So the first one is a sliding window. And a sliding window pattern is used to perform a required operation on a specific window size of a given array or linked list, such as finding the longest subarray containing all ones. But a subarray or a sliding window essentially starts at the first element and keeps shifting right by one element to adjust the length of the window. And here, either the window can get smaller or it could get larger or it could have a constant size. And a lot of the time, how do you identify a question uses a sliding window method? Well, it's if the input problem is of linear data structure, such as a linked list, array, or string. And you're asked to find the longest or shortest substring, subarray, or desired value. For example, let's say you want to find 5 elements within 5 contiguous elements, which means that they're beside each other in this array, right? So what you would do is you would have sort of 2 pointers and you just have a window, one pointer at the start, one pointer at the end, right? And here, as you can see, there's 5 elements within that sliding window, which meets the first requirement of having 5 elements. And the second is you want it to sum to 10, right? But as you can see here, I think it sums to 11, which is too big. So you want to slide one element forward and then do the sum again and see if it meets the requirements. And that's just one example of how to use a sliding window. But there are much more complicated problems as well. But as long as you have the certain basics of the pattern and you know that sliding window is an option, it makes it a lot easier. And that's something that I wish I knew when I first started to code, but I didn't. And, I wasted a lot of time trying to think of, different solutions to it, which is good. But at the end of the day, there's people that have been coding for years and they most likely have figured out the best solution. And these patterns are one of the best things to use. All right. So the second one is the 2-pointer approach. So this essentially is a pattern where there's 2 pointers that iterate through the data structure in tandem until one or both of the pointers hit a certain condition, right? And to figure out if you want to use 2 pointers or not, it'll feature problems where you deal with sorted arrays or linked lists and need to find a set of elements that fulfill certain constraints. The set of elements can be a pair, triplet, or even a subarray. And if you're not too familiar with some of the terms, not to worry, but just to sort of expose you to these sort of patterns. For example, in the example on the right, we have 2 pointers. One starts at 1, the other one starts at 6. So both the end of the array. And the target sum is 6. So what happens is you add the 2 pointers up and you say, hey, 6 plus 1 is greater than the target sum of 6. Therefore, let's decrement the pointer number 2, 1, because since the array is sorted and you know that the right side has the greatest value, let's decrement it to get underneath the target sum. Now we decrement it, we calculate it, and say, hey, 5 is less than the target sum now. So we'll increment pointer 1 to make it greater again. And 2 plus 4 equals a target sum. Therefore, you found a pair and you can return that, right? So this 2-pointer approach is also very common in interviews, and it's something that you should know as well. All right, third one is fast and slow pointers. Now, the fast and slow pointer approach, also known as like tortoise and the hare algorithm, it's an algorithm that uses 2 pointers which moves through an array at different speeds. And this approach is quite useful when dealing with cyclic linked lists or arrays. And cyclic kind of means that it loops within the array. So here, as you can see with this example, it goes from 1 to 6, but then after 6, it goes to 3, 4, 5, 6, and just keeps repeating there. So how do you know when to use this? A lot of the time, the question will sort of ask like, hey, do you know, does this linked list repeat or does it loop? Or is it just one regular linked list, right? And the best approach there would be the fast and slow pointers. So essentially, you have both pointers starting on the first node, one called fast, one called slow, and the fast pointer goes up 2 nodes at a time, while the slow pointer goes up 1 node through every iteration. So with this approach, as you can see here, I won't go through all of it, but at the end, the fast and slow pointer catch up to each other, and they are found on the same node. So that's kind of one way to say, hey, this linked list repeats itself, and I can return true because it does repeat, right? And if it doesn't, then it'll reach eventually an end, and it'll just never meet. But yeah, that's the fast and slow pointer approach. 3, let's go on to subsets. So subsets is very good to know as well, and it's in a large number of coding interviews. And these are sort of problems where you need to find a combination or a permutation of a given set. Problems featuring subset patterns is subsets with duplicates or string permutations by changing the case, right? So for example, given a set 1, 5, 3, find all the different combinations of this set. And how would you do that? Well, you would use certain subsets. So you would start with an empty array, you would copy it on the left side, and then you'd add the first element on the right side. And you'd pretty much do the same for all the elements in the set. So you'd copy the current set on the left side, as you can see with the empty bracket and then the 1, and then you would add 5 to anything in that set as well. So now you have an empty bracket, a 1, a 5, and then a 1, 5. So you copy that all on the left side because that's all unique, and then on the right side you add 3, right? So this is kind of just a very simple approach to find all the combinations of a current array. But this can be used in a wide variety of problems, and it's very good to know as well. Now, the next one I would like to talk about is top K elements. So these are any problems that you're asked to find the top, the smallest, or the frequent K elements of a given set, right? And the best way to do this is using a heap data structure to find, the top, let's say the smallest 3 elements of a given set, right? So in this case, we're finding the top 3 largest elements of the given set. So in here, since K is essentially 3, we would have a heap of size 3, and you sort of iterate through the array, and you replace the bigger digit with the smaller digit in the heap. So as you can see on the left side, 1 gets popped out, and then 12 gets inserted, and then the top is always sort of the smallest. And you keep doing that until you find the top 3 elements of that given set. The last one I will just briefly go over is a modified binary search. So whenever you're given a sorted array, a linked list, or a matrix, and are asked to find certain elements, the best algorithm that you can use is a binary search, right? And binary search is something that you'll hear a lot, and it is very useful. But pretty much you have your search key is 5. So you have a sorted array here from 1 to 7, and your key that you want to find is the value of 5. So you have 1 pointer at the start, 1 pointer in the middle, 1 pointer at the end. And what you want to do is, if the key is greater than the middle of the array, you want to sort of shorten your searching section, and you want to push up the start and sort of keep the end the same, because now you know that half of the array doesn't matter since it's below the key of 5. As you can see here, start gets pushed up to 5, but you're only checking for the middle value. So now you say, as well, the key, which is 5, is less than the middle, which is 6. Therefore, we have to sort of shorten it down from the other side because it's too big. Now we take the end and you replace it and put it in the middle area. And ultimately, you end up with the value of 5 that's in the middle. So now you can return the required index there, right? But essentially, these are just 5 of the most common patterns in interviews, but there are like 14, there's 20. There's a lot of different ones, from most common to not, but this was just sort of to give you guys some exposure that there are patterns in coding challenges, and it's best to learn them first before you attempt to do any coding challenge. And essentially, that's how you can kind of ace the interview. Once you know these patterns, you'll be able to fly by any of the coding challenges, and then hopefully you ace the behavioral and you fit in with the team, with the company culture as well, and do your research there. And yeah, hopefully you end up landing the offer. But I think we're kind of over time, but feel free to leave at any point. But that's all for me. And now I'd like to bring it over to you guys. If you have any questions, you want some advice on certain things, but feel free to ask questions on Slido. And this document here is just the updated hacker pack, but I also added it to the Discord as well, where you can access it. But yeah, I'll give you guys a moment. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. All right, so we have a few questions. Let's check them out. How was your experience working in your previous companies? All right, so you know what? Let's get some visuals. So right out of high school, I landed sort of a high school labs innovation developer at the Royal Bank of Canada, as you can see below here. The picture is not associated with it, but this was a lot of fun. My first kind of internship straight out of high school, just for 2 months. It was a great environment to work in. And then I ended up returning there again as my first co-op as a software developer, where I sort of revamped an internal wealth management application. And it was a great environment. The team was pretty busy at times, so a lot of the time I was coding individually, and there was only one other developer on the team. So it was a bit tough to ask questions, especially since it was my first time using .NET and certain Azure public cloud and things like that. But it was a great learning process, and RBC definitely treats its interns really well, and they usually have a lot of interns as well. But then, okay. And then I worked at Prodigy, which is kind of like a startup. I was founded by 2 mechatronics grads, which is very inspiring to me since I'm in mechatronics right now. And it's pretty much an educational learning platform for students. And their mission was to share learning online with everyone. So this was also a very fun sort of experience. I was the first one to pioneer the initiative to automate game testing. So as a test automation engineering intern, a lot of the time I had to manually test game parts, but they gave me the opportunity to say, hey, if you want to automate certain things with JavaScript, go for it. And so I did that. I presented it to a lot of managers on the team that were very impressed. And I think at startups, it gives you a lot of sort of freedom to do what you want there. At least my experience at Prodigy, it was really good. And then, with Autonomous, that was a student design team at Waterloo. Currently at Tesla, it's a great experience. It's only been 2 weeks in, but I do work a lot. I'm on the mobile robotics team, so I work on the Tesla bot right now. I can't exactly say what because I signed an NDA and they're very secretive about things that they do. But at Tesla, I would say it's also a great experience. You do have to work hard, but a lot of the things that I do is very interesting. And also, my manager says, "Hey, do you want to work on this project or this project? Whatever's more comfortable to you, whatever you want to do, go for it." Right? A lot of the time, it's just showing that you're very innovative and showing what you can do to solve a certain problem that Tesla has, or to sort of create something new for, let's say, the bot and things like that. But yeah, all right. Let's see. What was the most challenging thing you found when you first started your tech career? Most challenging thing that I found was probably, I would say getting that coding grind going, right? A lot of the time, it's great to be in tech, but you do have to keep up with the latest technologies and you do have to learn a lot, right? As you can see with my resume, for example, there are a good amount of um, skills, frameworks, and tools and technologies. And it was a big grind to sort of learn as much as I can and learn them up to a point where it's workable, right? You don't want to have a skill or language that you don't really know, because if you get asked by a recruiter or manager to answer a question and you don't know it, you're just going to kind of look silly, right? So you got to really work hard to add skills that you're confident in showing in interviews. And don't worry if you don't have a lot, as long as they're in depth and they're more quality than having quantity of different languages. Can you talk about ways to reach out and secure an interview on LinkedIn? Absolutely. So LinkedIn is a great place to go for. I'm actually going to go to it right now. Great place to go for searching for, interviews and things like that. A lot of the time, my friends, they always reach out to managers, hiring managers on LinkedIn. And the best way to find someone is just through searching, like, let's say, Tesla manager for a certain team. And you might not know the team, but even just searching like a senior manager at Tesla and messaging them, "Hey, my name is Brandon, second year student at Waterloo, currently looking for a summer internship. Tesla has always been a great company I would like to work for. I have done this, this, and this to show that I am passionate about robotics. This is how I can apply my skills to Tesla, specifically this role," right? That's just a very brief message. I also would attach my resume just in case. And yeah, you can also search up certain companies and search up like recruiters for those companies and just message them. And a lot of the time, I messaged over like, I would say 100 people in the past 6 months. Got left on read or delivered many times, but you only have to hit one to make it, right? So a few of them replied. I got interviews as well. So that was one way that you can sort of reach out. Yeah, hopefully I answered your question there. Let's see. How was the interview process like for big companies that you got interviews for? For example, Tesla or Google. So Google, I got the interview, but I didn't end up doing it because I already had Tesla. And I thought it was a smart decision by myself because I was not that prepared and I didn't want to botch the interview for not being prepared. So I'd rather take it at a later date. But for Tesla, I did sign an NDA, so I can't talk exactly about the interview process, but I will say, know your resume, know exactly what kind of projects or experiences that you did. And for every bullet point, always think about something to say. For example, if they asked you about what you did at Prodigy, I made this kind of server, and then, for example, a question might be, how did you reduce the latency from 500 milliseconds to 200? And what other ways could you have thought of to find a solution to this problem? And then right there, you kind of have to think like, okay, I remember this experience. I I remember the technical part of it and what I did to solve it. And was there anything else that I kind of thought about but didn't end up implementing because it wasn't as good, right? But a lot of the time, you really have to be sharp with your experiences and just answering questions in general. And that just comes from experience and just going through your resume and what you've done and going very in depth and really memorizing that in a way. What are some other ways we can apply to companies beyond a company website or Waterloo Works? Well, you can do that through LinkedIn, through the GitHub repositories, which are really good as well. Other ways to apply to companies. Networking. Networking is a big thing as well, right? If you see someone that works at Apple on LinkedIn and you really want to work at Apple, feel free to message them and just to have a coffee chat and just to talk about their experiences there. They might give you some tips on interview strategies or even maybe give you a referral as well. It doesn't always hurt to ask, but it's always good to get to know the company, get to know them first before you ask for those kind of things, right? But it's all kind of how bad do you want it, right? And how much are you willing to go to networking events, to network with people, make an effort to talk to people, get their LinkedIns, sort of connect with them on a personal level before you ask them for anything career related or job related, right? How did I find my interest in mechatronics? Where's that? My interest in mechatronics, to be honest, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I thought that robotics was a great combination of electrical, software, mechanical. And I thought, that gave me a wide breadth of different things and I could specialize in them later. So that's kind of how I chose mechatronics. Yeah. What should first year engineering students do to secure a good co-op? Okay, let me think about that one. I would say one of the biggest things is projects, something that you can work on for a month straight and sort of have something tangible to show a recruiter or a manager, right? For example, mine was, where's my website? This was after first year, but it was making an autonomous claw machine. So I developed that with some of my friends, and I know that can be pretty ambitious, but it is worth it, right? Even at Tesla, at my interview, the first thing my manager asked me about was the autonomous claw machine. How did you do it? How did you build it? What were some challenges you ran into? The technical detail, right? You have 3 degrees of freedom. How can you get certain sensors on there without it being too heavy? Trade-offs like that, right? There's a million and one things that I could kind of think about. And it's just the best way to be prepared for it is to anticipate that, right? Just by asking yourself questions and being ready for that and being like, hey, Brandon, what happens if like a sensor fails, right? What can I do to combat that? So just think about questions that they would ask you and I think that would be the best way after having a few good projects. But first year eng students should definitely reach out. I know a few first years in mechatronics reached out to me and I think I gave them great advice. And, someone that reached out to me as well got a interview at Tesla actually. And this was just straight from advice and just his passion to be at such a, innovative company and create projects for that. But yeah, I do think I give good advice. So feel free to reach out to me anytime. But yeah, another question we have is LinkedIn Premium worth it? Any ways to hack the system for connection messages? 300 character connection message are limiting me. LOL. Yeah, so LinkedIn Premium, I'm pretty sure there's some kind of promotion that you get LinkedIn Premium for free for like the first, I think, few months or something like that. But and I would definitely use it, right? I have Reactivate Premium there because I did have it, the free trial, which is great. As soon as you get it, send messages to the top recruiters that you find. But I would say it's not too worth it. A lot of the time you can find recruiters or people that you can just straight up message without having to pay that premium fee. In my connection message, if I'm trying to really get that connection to message them more, I would say, hi, my name is Brandon, third year student at going into third year at Waterloo in mechatronics. Very excited about this at Google or Tesla. Here's a link to my resume. I would love to connect and chat more, right? And then hopefully they accept you and want to chat more as well. But I don't think it's worth it. I think networking otherwise and seeing other things on your feed and seeing that people work at Google, Apple, Facebook, and there's better ways to reach out to them without having that subscription. But yeah, even in your Waterloo network as well, or I guess if you don't go to Waterloo, but your university should have sort of an area where you can sort of go to see what alumni are doing on LinkedIn, and just search up grads from your school, and you could always reach out to them in a way. And a great icebreaker would be saying, hey, I also go to Waterloo. I'm also in engineering, and I was wondering about this and this from your company that you're working at, right? But yeah, I think that's all the questions that I have right now. And I think I'll wrap it up there. Yeah, but yeah, also a reminder to fill out the survey, please, for this workshop. But thank you so much for joining, and yeah, I'll be in the workshop lead lounge for a bit to chat with people if you guys have any questions. All right, thanks. Bye.